Welcome to The Conversation, where we talk to leaders and professionals in the performing arts and entertainment industries. I'm your host, Veronique George, and today I have the distinct pleasure and honor of having Miss Toni on the show today. Miss Toni is the founder and artistic director of the Atlanta Black Theater Festival, and now the first African-American executive director of the Southeastern Theater Conference. Miss Toni, it's my honor to welcome you. How are you?
I'm phenomenal. Thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm grateful to be here.
It's our pleasure, an absolute honor to have you on the show today. I'll begin with a brief introduction. Miss Toni Simmons Henson is a published poet, best-selling author, public speaker, and serial entrepreneur. Her poetry has taken her to stages across the globe, including Los Angeles, New York City, Atlanta, Paris, and Ghana. She has more than 30 years of expertise in business development, marketing, theater and entertainment production, and she's launched and operated 3 franchises and 4 businesses in her career, most notably Micah 6 through 8 Media, which produces the Atlanta Black Theater Festival. Miss Toni is a graduate of New York University and Howard University. Miss Toni, it's great seeing you again, and welcome to the show. And if it's okay with you, we can go ahead and begin the conversation.
We can. I love this. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Toni. I am so inspired by your story and your leadership. The Atlanta Black Theater Festival, or ABTF as we affectionately know it, has provided a platform for more than 145 producing African-American playwrights and 3,200 artists. Could you share how ABTF was launched with our listening audience?
Wow. Yeah, I can. I had just come out of a franchise relationship that was horrible. The only one benefiting was the franchisor. And prior to that, I owned a franchise called Drama Kids International, which went really well until I wanted to move to Atlanta because I was the owner of the Princeton, New Jersey territory. So when I moved to Atlanta, I actually sold that franchise, purchased another franchise. Again, it went horribly well and ended up having to leave, break my contract, and then I was sued for breaking the contract. But it was just a bad contract. I did not do my due diligence business-wise, and I should have known better. So I ended up declaring bankruptcy in order to keep my home and what was left of the assets that I'd already gone through. So being despondent and in that place, my husband said to me, he said, you know what, you were happy when you were producing theater, when you were in the arts. And I said, you know what, that is so true. And then maybe about a couple weeks later, he planted that seed. And a couple of weeks later, on a hot summer night in Atlanta, the inspiration came to me in 4 words, and it was Atlanta Black Theater Festival. And from then on, the rest, as they say, is history.
Thanks for sharing, Miss Toni. What an awesome story. The franchises and businesses you've launched and operated include, as we've talked about already, the Atlanta Black Theater Festival, the Black Family Table Talk podcast, Black Theater TV, and now ABTF Travels. Underneath the ABTF Travels, the company led its first delegation of 34 artists and art enthusiasts to Ghana in December 2021 and recently returned from their 2022 delegation. How would you describe that last experience?
We call it ABTF Beyond Borders, and honestly, it's ABTF Beyond Words. So many things have happened since we started this, what I call a Garveyite movement, to introduce Africans in the diaspora to the motherland. and to dispel all of the myths that our story begins with slavery. That was another inspiration. My husband and I went to Ghana in 2019 for the year of the return. So Ghana had made this declaration that it would be the year of return, where they would open up the gates or the doorway to Africa and invite all of the diasporans home. And it just went way beyond what they could ever think or imagine. They anticipated 200,000 people, and they ended up with 1.2 million diasporans coming home. My husband and I were one of them. At that point in time, we were inspired by the, I would say, Harriet Tubman and her walk and movement to bring people and to freedom. I believe that you can't be free until you've stepped foot on the motherland as an African in the diaspora. I know people don't believe that, but once people do experience Africa, the motherland, they realize that it's something that happens to your DNA. There's a shift in the DNA that transforms me, and it also transforms those people that I get to the privilege of leading back home. So.
Wow, I am hoping I can make one of those trips with you, Ms. Toni. Every time you come back, it always sounds like a phenomenal experience, and so glad that you started that for everyone to come and to join you.
Yes, we took 24 people this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I 34 last year. I think 24 is our sweet spot in terms of the number of people, but it was a glorious 10 days. Glorious.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome. In September 2022, you became the first African American executive director of the Southeastern Theater Conference. What does that mean to you and for the future of theater?
Honestly, I'm trying to discover that right now. The way this came about, I attended the SETC a few years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and did not get a warm and fuzzy feeling when I was there. But I acknowledged and saw all of the wealth of resources. And yet I was probably one of a handful of people of color that were in attendance. But again, a wealth of resources and knowledge in theater and connections and networking. And I decided that honestly, it just wasn't my tribe. And I left, and I stayed because I paid my registration fee, got the most that I thought that I could get out of it. But I said I would never return. So, but I stayed on their mailing list. I stayed connected with the organization because I just really liked what they were doing in theater, although the outreach to and the involvement to BIPOC communities was little to none. Then George Floyd happened. And of course, that did a paradigm shift in all of our industries across the United States. And of course, theater was not left behind. So SETC decided that it was time for them to change. And some really wise people decided that it was time for them to open up the doors of opportunity in theater to all of Americans. And they sought out to get someone to lead the way. And when the job description came across my desk, I read it and I said, oh, wow, that's going to be a tough person to find. They're going to need somebody with a unique skill set. And I'm not even talking about being African American. Forget about that. Just being able, like, how many people in this country have the skills to run a theater festival? Not very many, or a theater conference. Not very many. and then they have to be looking for a job, and then they have to want to move to Greensboro, North Carolina. So I just kind of deleted it, and I said, "Oh, I wish them well," you know. And then the email came across my desk again, and I was like, I felt a nudge from the Holy Spirit. And then I deleted it, and came across my desk again, and I felt a nudge from the Holy Spirit. Discussed it with my husband, my daughter, who was home at the time. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. And here I am.
Here you are, making history and moves for all of us to follow.
Yeah, it's a 74-year old organization. They are committed to expanding opportunities and reach into marginalized communities, and I'm here to see what God has for the ability to influence the lexicon of American theater with this huge 74-year-old iconic organization. So I consider it an honor and a privilege, really.
Nice. Well, congratulations again. I'm so glad that you are close by. And as we speak about the theater conference, you know, what advice would you offer to aspiring artists or artists who are just getting their feet wet in the entertainment industry?
Well, it depends on what you want to do, but I would just say practice and audition. If you're a performer, practice and audition. If you're a writer, write. It's just so funny that you asked this question. I had the privilege of speaking to Woody King earlier this week. I reached out to him, and we just got off on a tangent of a conversation. And he said that writers nowadays don't have the opportunity to write and present their works. He said they can't make a living at it, so they do so many other things and they don't write. And you can tell by the quality of the work that's coming out now. And we talked about funding availability when he started versus what it is now. He said that the funds have dried up. There was more funding for people of color back then when he started, and his career spans over 50 years. So I was really surprised to hear that. But I was equally surprised to hear that when he said that writers need to be able to sharpen their pens by writing, and that there's so many other distractions that writers can't commit to writing. So I believe it's a bit of a frustration for writers, and that's what our focus has been on the last, I'd say, 12 to 18 months. As you know, we started a writers class to help develop writers, called it Page to Stage to Screen, and had a very robust class, and just worked out to be just, I think, what we need to continue. And we're looking to get funding to do that as well, because not a lot of people can afford to take classes, but we're looking to do funding and then to continue that as well.
That's awesome. Well, I was a student in that class, so I definitely would encourage any aspiring artists and playwright in particular to take the class and to do what you need to do to get funding, grants, scholarships, to get the resources that you need. Ms. Toni, I am so grateful for your time today. We want to stay in contact with you. Where can we look for you on social media and stay connected to the work that you're doing?
Well, Toni Simmons Henson on Facebook, and then on Instagram, Toni X Creates.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us for the conversation. Please stay connected with the VLG Productions community on social media. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.